Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here for GAI Insights, doing the GenAI News Briefing. Lots of news this morning. We've got I was going to say skeleton staff, but it's not the skeleton staff. It is the core staff of me and David and Adam on Carphone and Ankaj, of course. So, got an exciting day of news here. David, go for it.
All right. Thank you, John. Yeah, this will be fun. Just you and I get to banter back and forth with a little bit of Adam sprinkled in. So we'll be going through 7 articles today. We've got some actual news from Apple today rather than what they're going to be doing in the future kind of news, which we've been getting a lot of. We've got a couple articles about security concerns with LLMs. We've got NVIDIA making an acquisition, Meta upgrading their glasses, and a couple more for you. So we will jump right into this first one about Apple. Ankaj, good morning. Well, good evening to where you are, and please kick us off.
Thanks, David. So the first one that we have for today is from Apple. So Apple has released OpenELM. So these are a family of open source AI models, and they are designed to run on our mobile phones.
Yes, these are small ones.
Yeah.
And obviously makes sense with what their strategy is going to.
I mean, they haven't got outside evaluation of them yet, but I thought it was kind of cool. It's nice to see actual information from Apple as opposed to information about information. So, I read this as optional, but I think, a useful set of, models, ELM standing for efficient language model, as I understand it. And, the idea that more and more this is going to be, mobile and local, I think is going to be, important over time. But, it's early. These models haven't been evaluated, and, they finally joined the fray. So I was going to give it optional. I don't know, Adam and Akash and David, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, this is the second model that they released, right? I think the last one they released was late last year. And, this is sort of a different strategy from Apple historically, right? They kind of keep everything close to their vest. And then in some ways, I chuckle because the way that this came out is in line with their strategy, right? They're just kind of quiet. They don't make a lot of noise when they have plans, and they just kind of trickle out information, right? And then they have the big reveal. Speaking of which, slight aside, they do have an event that they scheduled for May 7th to give us some news. And, they always create a really awesome visual for the news. And this time it looks like they're going to announce something about creative tools because it's a hand holding like a pen with some color around it. So I'll be interested to see what comes up there. But I mean, I feel like this is important. I don't remember what we flagged the last model release as, but I just think it's important because we're starting to see little hints of what's going on here. And I think it's just interesting that they're, open sourcing models, which is not typical for them. But I could be convinced otherwise. I don't know, Adam, if you have any views on this one.
Yeah, I hesitate to call it important. I'm just thinking from an enterprise perspective, what a busy exec is going to do with this piece of information. Like, important to me is make time, add it to your reading list for the weekend. And I'm not quite sure I'd want to take up their bandwidth at this point, especially with more news coming right around the corner, potentially with more details. You've made a couple of significant comments about shifts in the landscape, but I don't know. I'm not really helping. I'm probably on the fence as well.
All right. Well, we'll go optional. We'll wait and see what happens in a few weeks, and maybe that news will be important or even essential. Okay, Ankaj, what's next?
Okay, the next one is from NVIDIA. So they are acquiring a GPU orchestration software provider, Run AI. It's a Israeli startup, and they are promoting efficient cluster resource utilization for AI workloads.
All right. Well, I don't think this news is going to put their stock going back in the right direction, as I've watched it fall over the last week or two. And I mean, it makes sense, but sad to see it in my portfolio. But obviously, this is a good move. I mean, it makes a lot of sense for them to acquire an orchestrator. What do you think about this, John? Though, in terms of important or
Yeah, I put it as optional, but really, as you say, look, it's really in the whole AI ops area. It's going to be essential, and we're reinventing the operating system and job control languages and all that stuff from before, where you're going to have to orchestrate across these different layers. Run AI looks like a very capable company in this. They're going to continue to allow sales out to competitors, presumably, and so forth. They say they will. So I think it's a great strategic move for them, but I think optional and expected in terms of a direction.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go optional on this one, unless Adam, you have any strong leanings another way. We'll take that as a no. All right. Ankaj, next.
Yep. The next one comes from Snowflake. So Snowflake has launched Arctic LLM. So it's a new open source LLM from them, and seems like they have released it in competition with Databricks DBRX.
Yeah, so Snowflake switched up CEOs, and the new CEO was the CEO of a company that they had acquired, who was focused on generative AI more, and it seemed like a clear move that the board probably felt that Databricks was kicking ass and Snowflake was kind of quiet. And since this new CEO taking over, they're starting to ramp up here, and this is just the beginning, right? I was actually more excited about Cortex, which is their managed service that will come out in a few more weeks. I suspect we'll be talking about that one. But what did you think of this particular news, John?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of in between optional and important. I do think that this whole notion of bundling an LLM with your data in one data environment is very interesting. Whole competitive vector here. And perhaps note the the importance of complying with regulation and so forth. So I think the regulators are actually going to help increase the likelihood that people are going to be willing to buy from Databricks, Snowflakes, because it's just going to be easier to implement those regulations probably in a unified intelligence and data environment. And I think the whole mixture of experts architecture is vital in what they're doing here, and that's how they built this thing, Arctic. But we don't know its performance yet, and so I'd give it an optional. But
yeah, I mean they claim that it's as good as Llama 3, but they did not release any documentation to confirm that. So yeah, well, let's go with optional on this one, but definitely looking forward to the upcoming announcement, which I think maybe will rise in significance for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ankaj, what's next?
The next one is from Competition and Markets Authority in UK. So they are investigating the AI partnerships between Microsoft and Mistral AI, Amazon and Anthropic, and Microsoft's hiring of former employees of Inflection AI.
Yeah, so the Central Markets Authority, I guess the closest comparison in the US, I guess, would be the FTC, right?
Yep. And, FTC plus the Antitrust Board of Justice.
Yeah, true. So, I mean, they're just kind of joining the fray, right, with the European Union and the US also investigating these relationships. And they're asking for comment, which is, of course, not a formal review, but it's the precursor potentially to one. And, this is sort of expected, I guess you could say, given the fact that this is already happening in other regions. But it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out. Right? If there's movement in one area to break up these partnerships, it will change the competitive landscape and potentially the way that this technology develops over time. So it's certainly one to keep an eye on. I hesitate to call it optional because the impact can be significant, and I think it's important to keep track of the movement with this.
Yeah.
With the look here. So I feel like I want to call it important just to flag that like yet another, nation is jumping into the mix here to take a look.
Yeah, I'd be okay with important. I had it as optional, but you have to remember that the only time that we had real antitrust in the U.S. or was basically by the vice president who got in there because of an assassination. I mean, the business community really wanted McKinley, and they stuck Roosevelt on there just as a compromise, and then McKinley gets shot, and then so we actually, that's the only way a true antitrust person's ever made it to the White House. That, and you could argue FDR, so in our long history, right? I don't think we're going to see significant antitrust against these guys. I'd make this thing important, for the reasons you said. And the other thing is, if you click through to the actual report on page, it's either 8 or 9, they have a lovely little graphic that shows the cross investment, or because there's 77 investments by the big folks and so forth. And if this doesn't look like, the web of trusts that old JP Morgan and crew put together, I don't know what does,
Yeah, I clicked through because it also mentioned that they were looking at an interconnected web. They called it 90 partnerships and strategic investments involving the same firms. And I was like, wow, that would be a killer graphic. They didn't quite do what I expected. I was like, oh, there's going to be a graphic here for me to put on LinkedIn, but they let me down a little bit. But man, that would be a cool graphic if you did map out like all of that.
Yes. Yeah. Page 9 has the kind of the simple version of that. I don't know if I can share quickly here, just so we can throw it up there. Present. If we look at, let's see, share screen. Okay, share screen was. Okay, share screen. Okay. Let's see, updated paper. Yeah, this thing share here, folks. If you can see that, So as you say, this is not that fancy, but their gamma analysis. Yeah, I remembered it as 77, but you're right, it's 90. I don't know where I get 77, but here on page 9, I think it's kind of an interesting study. So whatever. Let's give it important, and off we go.
All right. What do we have next, Ankaj? Let me add you back to the stage.
Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the next one is a research paper from Anthropic. It's still early stage research, but it talks about how a sleeper agent Trojan model can affect your large language models.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are starting to see, and we're going to look at another article, right, about the ways that these LLMs can be compromised. Not necessarily surprising that would be the case. And it's good to see that the providers of the models are continuing to, challenge them and see what the art of the nefarious possible is. I don't know that I would. And we've been back and forth, right? Some of these we've been flagging as important. Some of them we've been saying optional. What did you think about this one, John?
Yeah, I put it as important. Our friends at Anthropic seem to be, very clear and open about, what some of their concerns and vulnerabilities are. And, I was impressed that, it's not the first time that, these sleeper agents have been noted, but it is a growing trend of, the idea of, being able to process different sets of prompts and assess the probability of vulnerability, and to embed those, either, and some of the embeddings are pretty clever, in images and so forth, in terms of, and then forwarding it through email systems, which then interrogate the models. That's a pretty, and they give it a pretty big, a big name here, right? Because they call it Mars 2, right? And that's obviously the Mars virus was horrific. So I think it's important.
muting because I've got yard work going on in my condo here. All right, let's go with important on this one. I could definitely be convinced on that. Any thoughts, Adam, from you? I don't want to leave you out. You can always jump in when you want. All right.
All right. He's
Silent.
he's not unmuting, so
Yes.
I feel like we're on the bridge of the Enterprise. Captain, they're firing up their torpedoes.
Akash, what's next?
Okay. So the next one also talks how different malicious entities can impact generative AI systems. So it talks about worm, which is targeting GenAI systems.
I'm sorry. On that last article, I was confusing it with this article. So strike this up about Morris too from last time and bring it over here.
That's okay. We so yeah, different type of attack here. We've got a worm. It was created, kind of in the lab, as they say. This is not out in the wild, which is good. Cornell Tech, Israel's Institute of Technology, Intuit worked together to see this emerge. Look like what it does is if it gets into your system, it can extract data and really gum things up. What do you think about this one? Did we have to say important, given we said the last one was important?
Yeah, not for that reason, but I do think it's important. I mean, I think, what's cool, about this stuff is that I always think back to biologic systems. Biologic systems are so complex in terms of threat and growth, threat and control and growth. And there's a lovely psychedelic theorist who's since dead by the name of Terence McKenna, and he basically makes the argument that life is an anti-entropic force. That is, the tendency of life, at least on the planet that we live on, is toward complexification and coherence, and that goes against, was it the second law of thermodynamics about dissipation and simplification. So a lot of the function of life is to make things more complicated and interactive and responsive, or at least a lot of life does that. And I think as these systems get closer and closer to being alive, you're going to see increasing complexification as a uniform tendency, just like we do in biologic life. And that's going to mean all kinds of new. If you think about what's going on, like here, right? There's a lot of generation and protection happening all over your body all the time. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. So not to get all philosophical, but I think it's important.
I liked it, though. You took us down an interesting road here. See, my brain doesn't function well enough in the morning to even remotely come up with that. I mean, you're way smarter than me anyway, so you still would come up with that over me. But to extract that kind of information, and you're an hour behind, John. So man, are you a true morning person?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm a true night person, so that's when you hear me get real chatty.
There you go.
That's why when I'm in Europe and I do this show, I'm like a totally different person. I remember Paul, when I was out there, he's like, "Oh my God,
you're a star." Yeah,
because I'm actually awake. Okay, so we'll go with important on this one and move on to the next.
Yep.
Okay, so the last one for today is from Ray-Ban. So Ray-Ban's Meta smart glasses now have multimodal AI.
All right, I'm so intrigued by these glasses, but I don't pull the trigger on them for a couple of reasons. One is I have worn glasses since I was 10 years old, and I have contact lenses, and I have not wanted to wear glasses, so I don't want to put them back on. And I don't feel like they're quite at the level where I need to pull the trigger yet. But it's really cool that they've put the multimodal model now into the glasses, and it will let you kind of look at something and ask what it is. And as the author of this article, it was kind of a cute piece. Apparently their spouse has the glasses, has transition lenses in them, so is wearing them all the time and is constantly challenging the glasses to identify things. And she's a story about a squirrel in the backyard, and wanting to take a picture and identify what type of squirrel it was or something. And she actually beat her spouse by just taking a picture with the phone and go into the computer and taking a look. So, but Meta's moving, right? They've come out with the announcement. I'm already forgetting whether that was this week or last week. Last week, that's right, because I did a comic about it, about Llama 3. They've got this. We know that they've got GPUs up the wazoo. Like, I mean, they're doing it, but like, I don't find this particular piece of news important. I'd call it optional.
I'd give it optional. I think it's I almost put it as important just because and people have said it before, and it's true that how consumer technologies are driving enterprises and even warfare. I mean, when you think about like what's going on with drones and RPGs and stuff. So, I mean, the old relationship between industrial use and consumer use is just gone, right? And you have even SpaceX is taking consumer grade electronics and sticking them into rockets. So. I think there's that. I think the other thing that's going to be cool is like what are going to be the social norms about it? Like I was with somebody the other day, and somebody walked up and had a pair of Ray-Ban glasses that looked like the ones, and the person was very angry. They're like, "You don't have those aren't the Meta ones, right?" The assumption of the individual about the other person was if you and they said if before the person even had a chance to answer, if they are, turn them off or take them off, and it was like, wow, okay. And I don't think we have social norms about that, and that's going to be an interesting thing to navigate.
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting. So you were on the border of important. I don't know if Adam, you're here to break the tie. I was more on the side of optional.
I think I'd lean towards optional. So they mention the humane pin in the article there. There's also the Rabbit R1. I think people have been getting their first hands-on look at it this week. And we're going to see a lot more of these, right? Where someone basically has a camera on all the time and they're talking to an AI about what they see in the world around them. Yeah. But so far, not only have these things not proven out, but as I understand it, the Ray-Ban glasses aren't even a large action model like the humane pin or the Rabbit is. So this is really just like a ChatGPT type conversation. It's not actually taking actions on your behalf. So it's pretty remedial, even in terms of the capabilities of these types of tools for today. It's nice that it got an upgrade, but I don't think it's really a significant shift.
Yeah, and actually on the Rabbit, by the way, if you remember, I took a flyer on that because I got the 2-year subscription to Perplexity with it, and I'm a heavy Perplexity user, so I was happy to go to Pro and support them on that. So I got the invitation to the unboxing the other night, and I tuned into it for a little while, and wow, I mean, it was funny. Just because it was an hour and 15 minutes long, and like, they had an audience there, and this guy is like really trying to be, a Steve Jobs type, and there was a release right before it that perhaps what's going on behind the scenes is not actually any AI, but potentially just like a really basic script that's calling, DoorDash and like the only 3 applications that you could do on it. I would say it was pretty cool to have him talk into it and have Midjourney create an image instantly. That was very cool. But as soon as he went to order food off of DoorDash, and he said in advance, like, look, I'm going to tell you, we're still working on this. I mean, he literally had to put the device down for like a minute to like wait for the thing to activate. So like ordering food took like probably 5 times as long as if you were just to type it in on your cell phone. So, I mean, look, it's kudos to these folks for like pushing the envelope and trying to like, just turn the page in the technology here and get new form factors and such. But, long way to go, I think, for these wearable devices. We'll see how it all pans out. Before we get to the summary, actually, I'm glad that you're here today. We have
one more article. Oh no, that was it. Sorry,
that was it. Yeah. While Antaj gets the summary, I, as John pointed out, had kind of fallen off the wagon with finishing out playing everybody our potential theme songs, and today I have one crafted by Adam with the help of this one. I believe we used Suno for. So we're gonna, and actually there's a video associated with it that Adam did because he is a very creative man. And so let me present this one for you. All right, share my window. I'm sorry, I gotta share a tab. That's right, I gotta share a tab to make this happen. And wait, I gotta bring this over. Sorry, 1 second. I need to bring this over. You know what? It's because I had to open in a different set of windows, and I can't bring it over because it's in Slack. Darn it!
Want to kick off tomorrow's news?
Yeah,
tomorrow we will.
Different windows. Sorry, the anticipation, and I just.
We're gonna be like Apple and make an announcement about an announcement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We have Apple News, which is news on the news on the news.
All right, so that will make people want to tune in tomorrow, and it's a Friday, so that's fun. You know, we'll play.
There you go. All right, we will be there.
Okay,
all right, here we are. Go for it.
Yes, 3 importance. CMA looking at the partnerships going on with Mistral and Microsoft and the whole web that this has been weaved there, and 2 security issues that we have flagged as important. Otherwise, a bunch of interesting but optional news. And as I was saying to John before the call today, I mean, there was a lot of news that happened over the last couple of days. So we couldn't squeeze in anything. So if there are things you're like, hey, I can't believe they talked about this, we'll probably talk about it tomorrow because we had to just kind of pick a batch here that we could manage in within a half an hour. Yes. So thank you everyone for joining today.
One thing, yesterday I had a fantastic meeting at Northern Trust user conference, bunch of sovereign wealth funds, really interesting set of questions in the conversation about, what should other countries do that don't have large language models, and how should they think about this? And, what are going to be the geopolitical implications, especially from an investing standpoint? For those of you who don't know Northern Trust, big bank here in Chicago, one of their biggest service. They manage a lot of high-end net worth wealth as well as a retail set of retail locations. But they also do what's called custody, which is, when the markets trade stuff, they have to park the security someplace. They have 5% of custody of all the global assets, which is a huge number. And the biggest provider is State Street Bank at about 13%. So they have a very interesting view on the market. And I was having a lot of conversations with sovereign wealth managers about what does this all mean for the geopolitics and the economic development of the world. So fascinating conversations. It was a pleasure to be there and at least give them some insight as to what's coming.
Amazing. All right, John, making his way across the U.S., sharing your insights. I love it. Okay, we'll share more insights tomorrow morning, bright and early as usual. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Ankash, for your help. Adam, for joining from the car. Michael, Novak, for all of your insights that you provide every day. We really, really appreciate your loyalty, and we will see everybody soon.
All righty. Bye, everybody.